This podcast contains explicit content and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Don't say we didn't warn you.
Hi, my name is Madison.
And I'm Hannah,
And you are listening to Who's Knocking?
a true crime podcast.
What up? We have...
Cheers.
Oh yeah, cheers. We're drinking. We have a special thing for our intro today. A special...
Yeah, we're super excited about this.
Yeah, we're very excited. So today on our intro, we are going to be unboxing our very first piece of fan mail.
Yep.
Cool.
We've received fan mail.
We're pretty excited about it. Hopefully, okay, first of all, I'm just going to preface this
Let's
by saying...
take bets on what it is.
Well, no, first of all, just take in that we're opening a package from a stranger online before doing the Unabomber.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure, you know, the mail companies check if it's a bomb.
Yeah, usually, well, a lot of people opened those bombs, as we will.
Yeah, but now that happened, I think
Yeah. But just like, it's pretty brave of us.
I think vial of blood.
Well, it could be a Luca Magnotta hand or foot situation.
Okay.
But I don't know. It doesn't smell like decomposing flesh.
Maybe shake it a little? What do we think? That could be a vial of blood.
It would have to be a very large vial of blood. It's very heavy.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And
It's heavy. Okay. That's a hint.
Ben, who sent it to us, we don't think it's anything.
He knows we're joking.
We're just obviously joking here. But you never know.
You know, Ben, if you want to send us a vial of your blood, we'll accept it. I mean,
And do what with it?
put it on the set.
I don't know. I don't know how I'd feel if somebody sent me a vial of their blood. I probably would contact police.
I'd be flattered.
Yeah, I'd be flattered.
That's a nice gift.
You know, I'd be flattered because you know what? I have, like, back in the day, like, I used to walk around and people used to be like, hey, lady, like, give me your number. Like, that has literally don't happen to be in, like, years.
It's COVID. It's only COVID.
No. It's because I walk around with a stroller and a baby. And I'm
Right.
disheveled now. But
Disheveled.
no, actually, a couple years ago, I remember a couple years ago when I moved into my last apartment, so probably 4 years ago, I ventured down to the convenience store.
Kidless.
With no child, and the convenience store owner told me I was a beautiful lady.
Nice.
But that was the last time, about 4 years ago. So
yeah, I'm sure the kids are kind of a deterrent.
yeah, which it's fine. Like,
I know, it's kind of nice.
it's fine, but you know,
Less harassment.
someone sent me a vial of their blood, I'd think, wow, you really like me.
Yeah.
You think I'm really good looking,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but you're also nuts. So
I think it's normal. No, just kidding. It's crazy.
we're gonna open this, see what we find.
Okay.
Maybe you didn't want us to open this on camera, but here we are.
I mean, if you're watching this, it's probably something that
I
is
assume
okay to be
he's
seen on
watching
camera.
this.
Yeah.
Shout out Ben, because you're like, you comment on every video, and that really helps us.
And we appreciate you sending us a gift.
We do.
Whatever it is.
Well, it hasn't exploded.
Okay, so don't smell any decomposition.
Nothing oozing out of the box.
Okay.
I hope you're not offended by us saying
No,
that.
he knows we're
I feel like that's
joking.
could be kind of mean here. I'll put this so that you can see.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It's stuff.
It's real items.
It's items. Is there a card?
Should we read it out loud?
You read it.
Madison and Hannah, I appreciate all the free content.
And so I've sent you 2 of my toes.
Remember when the little people when your pod blows up? That is so cute. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we
you know,
appreciate
to
it.
be like, it's actually so nice because like
No, it is super nice.
it feels like you like believe in our podcast, and that's like amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. And I know he'd be fine with us saying that he sent us blood.
This is very nice.
Oh, the worst monsters are real. True. If you
And people are
hear-
shit. They
people
so are.
shit. If you listen to the episode that we just recorded, well, the one before this, which I don't know when you're gonna hear it.
The Shermans?
No,
Oh,
the mini.
we just
the mini
recorded.
knocker.
Oh, well, don't tell them about it. That's
I'm not gonna say who it's about, but
Yeah, that's
the worst monsters are real. That is true.
And people are shit. He did mention that this was a
Listener discretion is advised.
cute
Stickers.
stickers. I want to
One for you.
Do I want to be a person who puts stickers on my laptop? I did that with my last laptop.
Once you start, you have to keep putting stickers.
I know. I did that with my last laptop, and then I regretted it. So maybe I'll put this on something different.
Okay, the worst monsters are real.
This
People are
so
shit.
cute.
And then these ones. Again, the worst monsters are real.
Oh,
this is
water
nice.
bottles.
This is good quality.
Fucking live for water bottles.
What's yours say? Oh, there's something in here. Oh, it's blood. No, just kidding. Imagine. He's like, yeah, just kidding. It is. It is my blood.
A toe. This is honestly so sweet of you.
Yeah,
and this
this
is
is
like
really nice.
An actual good sized water bottle.
Yeah,
You know what I
good
can't
quality.
stand? Tiny water bottles.
You don't like tiny water bottles?
No.
They
Take a
are so
sip.
useless. Yeah.
Because I take a water bottle to be with me to bed at night, and I only wake up to chug it.
These are actually really, really nice.
These are super cute. And he told
I
us
almost prefer this to one of your body parts. So good.
I do.
I mean,
He did
I
tell
don't
me
know.
too that I think this is like merch or something for another podcast.
okay.
Sword and Scale. Is that what it's called?
Competition. Just kidding.
Which we don't listen to.
No, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what it is. And apparently it's like a really big podcast that we probably should know about. But there's a lot of true crime podcasts out there, people.
Yeah, there are. But there's only
And-
one who's knocking.
And I will be listening to it now that I support it. But thank you so much, Ben. Honestly, we really appreciate you are one of the people who's been sending emails and who's been commenting a lot, and like all the comments and everything is engagement, and that helps us. We're obviously a very young podcast. We almost have 50 episodes, which is pretty exciting, and it's like a huge milestone for us. But we are a little baby show. So for us, like every comment, every review, every subscriber is like really important.
Yeah.
So the fact that you comment on like every video is fucking dope, because at least we can comment on like one comment per video at least. So thank you so much for being a friend of the show. The OG knocker, as you've labeled yourself.
Yep.
I think that's a fitting title. Fair. We have one head knocker, my friend Veronique,
Right.
and one OG knocker.
Feel free to comment if you also have a nickname to offer yourself. Anyone out there?
Yeah, if you feel the need to
We are taking applications.
name yourself, yeah. Yeah, that's like the cutest thing ever.
Yeah, that was nice.
Cool. And I when you said that you were gonna send something, I was like, oh, a stranger online gonna send me something.
Yeah.
That's
Could go one of two ways.
yeah. But we all survived and are happy. So thank
Nothing
you.
exploded. Nothing oozed.
So anything else that we have for our intro? Let me think. I don't think so. Last time we talked about John Benet Ramsey.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Like on a personal level, how have you been doing?
Great.
Hannah told me she has a
Fine.
wasp nest in her
Yeah, there's a
backyard,
wasp nest in my house.
which kind of sucks. I'm now living with a 6-week-old baby. We've just been discharged from my midwife. He's a whopping 11 pounds, 6 ounces.
He's so cute.
So he's heavy, and the 3 kids is kicking my ass.
It's a lot of
Kicking my
kids.
fucking ass, you guys.
Yeah.
Hard.
That's plenty of kids.
That's
a pack.
Plenty.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law just had a baby. I won't name or identify anything in case they don't want me to, but he's super cute and he's nice and healthy, and
That's good.
that's my personal life. Summer's nearing an end. That sucks.
I have dogs. They're cute.
They're very floppy.
Updates in my life. My dogs are cute.
Yeah, so that's the rare personal update. That's the fan mail. Now let's get into today's case,
Okay, let's do it.
which I'm pretty excited about.
Me too, actually.
This is a very interesting, it's a very famous case, so I'm sure that most people listening probably know at least
you've
a thing or
heard
two.
You've heard about it for sure.
And this is somebody who has been like the thing that like gets me the most about this guy that I think is bad is like he has like a cult following. Like people are like fans of him.
I kind of get why. I will get into my opinions on it.
Yeah, no, I understand why, but it's like
I know he's kind of bad, but like I like kind of
are you a fan?
empathize with him.
I empathize. Okay, we'll get into it. Okay. Cool.
He's not a Paul Bernardo. You know what I'm saying?
He's not sadistic like
I
that.
think he has redeeming qualities. And I kind of get why he did what he did.
Okay, let's get into it before
Unlike
we
Paul.
spoil.
Burn in hell.
So we've been forgetting to like rate things. We've just forgot.
Yeah, I did not. I did not remember that at all.
I remembered. So this one I'm rating.
Do people care if we rate? Like, is that anything?
I think we'll just, if we remember, we do it. If we don't. But I'm gonna rate this one.
But tell us if you do.
Because I think I'm always interested to see my versus yours, and so I'm gonna rate this an 8.
Okay. What do you think Berry and Honey is?
It's hard because that one's not solved. Because I rated on like how scary the murderer is, and like we don't really know how scary.
But that's
the
scary.
Murderer is. That's the situation is scary, but like the person, I don't know. Because like if it was Carrie, it's like I'm not fucking scared of you. You're just crazy. But if it was like,
it was for sure.
I don't know, like organized crime or like, big pharma, then it's like that's really conspiratorial, and it's like you guys are out here killing people, you fucking crazy people, and like getting away with it. So I don't know. I would maybe like a 5.
Okay.
I don't know. What would you rate
that
it?
sounds right. Like 7. It's like depends on my mood.
Yeah,
like
it's hard. It's hard. I find it harder to rate something like that. I find it much easier to rate a person.
Yes.
Because in this case, I'm rating Ted Kaczynski.
Okay. So what are you rating this one?
I'm rating it an 8.
Oh, that's very high.
I think it's high. I think he's.
You're very
really
scared
scary.
of him.
I think he's a scary individual.
Interesting.
Mostly because of his intelligence level.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll get into it. So, between 1978, I'm doing a little intro, by the way. I'm trying something new on. Between 1978 and 1995, a series of bombs, each more powerful than the last, were mailed or placed in various locations aimed at killing and injuring as many people as possible. An unknown individual, known only as the Unabomber, would terrorize America for 17 years, and once his identity was discovered, he gained some sick little cult following. Hannah.
Super sick. I was totally part of this cult following. Not anymore. I'm an ex.
Yeah.
Cult.
We'll get into it. I keep saying that. Sorry.
I was part of that sick little fun.
You were the.
I'm a sick little child of the internet.
You were the. What the fuck is her name? Why do I never remember Sadie of Charles Manson?
Susan Atkins.
Susan Atkins. Yeah. You're the Susan Atkins of Ted Kaczynski.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know.
I guess
I'm just
like
relating it to other things. Anyway,
I don't really want to be mentioned in the same sentence as Susan Atkins, but okay.
Susie, I feel like she called herself Sadie.
Sadie Maglets.
Sexy Sadie.
Or sexy
was a nickname. Okay, so Ted Kaczynski was born on May 22nd, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. His parents were a Polish-American couple named Wanda and Theodore Kaczynski. Theodore was a sausage maker. That's all I know about his job.
Such a specific job.
I don't know if he owned a sausage factory.
Okay.
Which is just funny. But but the couple, both of them separately had been raised as Catholics, but they were now atheists.
Okay.
And I always think it's interesting, like the atheists in like Midwest America.
That's interesting.
In the like 50s, or what did I just say he was born? Yeah,
42.
In 42. Because like that was like a pretty like
religious
out
time.
Of the norm
Yeah.
thing. Like now it's like in like modern day downtown wherever, it's like super normal to like atheist parents, but at that time it was pretty out there.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And I think it tends to be, I think the type of family that they were, it kind of makes sense, or it's like very on brand. I don't know. So Ted was a very normal, healthy baby with no apparent issues.
Okay.
He was happy and developing normally. He was the first child, so I'm sure that it was like a very exciting time in their lives, et cetera, et cetera. And then at 9 months old, he developed an allergic reaction to a medication. And this required a lengthy stay at the hospital, where doctors took their sweet time trying to figure out what had caused the hives. And during Ted's stay in the hospital, he was completely isolated and had very little contact with his mother and father.
That's not good.
I believe they were allowed to visit like twice a week for like 1 or 2 hours at a time, and that's it.
That's so sad.
So yes, he was a 9-month-old baby, and so we can assume this must have been extremely traumatizing.
I heard he was
him.
like strapped down to a table too, to be
probably at times. I doubt like at the I doubt it was like the entire time, but
at least for some amount of time, you know.
Yeah, that's not surprising. And you know, in my experience, I've now had 2 9-month-old babies and another baby that's not 9 months old yet, but 9-month-old babies are extremely social, and they crave attention, and they They crave attention, love, and physical touch, especially from their mothers, constantly. So to have that abruptly taken from you for reasons you obviously can't understand, that breaks my heart.
And being in a hospital setting, you know?
I cannot imagine. And I think it was a time where like they didn't really understand the issues that would cause clearly. But like in this day and age, if somebody tried to do that to my children, I would flip my shit. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah, I don't think they understood at the time.
Yeah. And like I think they would never do that now.
That's
because
good.
I think it's very clear that this causes major issues.
Yeah.
Unabomber.
Yeah.
But so that
in
was.
In this case, for sure.
Yeah, that was a big childhood identifying situation. And evidently, this stay affected Ted, we think. According to Ted's mother, when he finally came home, he seemed to experience very bad separation anxiety.
That's so sad.
And he was also less responsive and more withdrawn, and he avoided eye contact, which is, to me, very clear evidence that that was bad.
And how long was he in the hospital?
I could only find different variations on multiple weeks, but it was at least multiple weeks, and like a day is too long to do that to a baby.
That's crazy.
Way too long.
Yeah, wow.
There's been a number of cases I've heard of like there's this pretty famous case of this woman, I think in like Cape Breton or something coastal, where she was killed and her daughter was in the house and like left there for like a day or two. And it's like even that, and I mean the difference was like that child was like not being fed or changed or anything, whereas like in this situation I'm sure things were hygienic,
right?
But it's just like you can't isolate children. You can't do it.
It's not good.
So anyway, despite this behavior in very early childhood, Ted did appear to develop relatively normal as a child. I think there was always something that was like not quite right, but it was not super noticeable as he got a little bit older.
Okay.
And then once Ted got to elementary school, he appeared to be socializing well, on the shyer side, but nothing crazy. The family moved from inner city Chicago to Evergreen Park, Illinois, so still in Illinois, and they bought their first single family home and began to live a much more quaint lifestyle. So they moved from a big city to like suburb, more rural location. Ted's younger brother, David Kaczynski, says that he had very positive memories of his childhood. He loved his older brother, and he and Ted and their father spent a lot of time in nature. Their father was huge into camping and fishing and hiking and all that.
This really comes into play later.
Yeah, he loved outdoor activities.
So remember this part.
Survival shit, you know, that
which
kind
is
of
cool.
stuff.
That's
Great.
super cool.
It's a great way
Shout
to
out
spend
my
your
shirt
childhood.
that I'm wearing right now.
The whole family was just really big into the outdoors. David says that their father tended to really value their family, I should say, really valued intelligence and academics, and like they were a really like, academia-focused family. Yes. Great. Yep. And that's where Ted really excelled. In junior high, he took an IQ test, and according to him, he scored 167, which is 4 standard deviations above the mean.
So
AKA,
he says he scored this?
Yes, but I think it's been
I heard he had a super high IQ, yeah.
Yeah.
That is really high.
It's genius level.
It's like beyond genius level.
Yeah, it's extremely high. Because of this new genius level IQ, Ted was able to skip the 6th grade. And it seemed that skipping a grade maybe did not help Ted socially.
Yeah.
As it usually does not.
I could see that.
And I find there's a lot of conflicting information online about Ted's personality and his like time in like his personality like while in skills? School. Mm-hmm. Some sources say that he was super withdrawn and introverted in school, and some say he was kind of shy but was known to everyone as a smart kid.
Okay.
And I assume that the truth kind of lies somewhere in between. And at the end of the day, I think it's always the case when you're talking about somebody's time in school. It's like you're getting information from the people that was around him and like heard what he did and then gave this information. Yeah. So I think it's always a little bit skewed towards people like being like, oh yeah, he was super weird now that they know that it happened. Again, I think witness testimony is another one of those pieces of evidence that
junk
is
science.
Just, it's really, really unreliable.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ted's brother described Ted as going through periods where he didn't have any friends and like was really withdrawn, but like that didn't seem to be all the time. Okay. And he remembered one day asking his mother like what's wrong with Ted? Like, something's wrong with him. What is it? And that's when Ted's mother told David about Ted's time in the hospital as a baby and explained that situation to him.
I'm surprised she made that connection.
I think it was probably super clear to her.
When he came back, he was super different.
Yeah, and I think she was probably like, I think as a mother, like,
you feel super guilty.
Well, that, but I think like maybe she didn't really I think maybe they weren't very confrontational people or something. Okay. Or maybe they just like trusted the doctors and stuff. Yeah, they like really thought like this is probably the best thing for him, that we're not getting in the way. She described it as though like they didn't want them in the way, because a majority of the time I think they were trying to figure out what was wrong with him. Right. And again, like if you're in a situation where like, you know, a kid like breaks his leg, like you're going to leave him and let the doctors figure their shit out and not get in the way. That makes sense. Yeah. But it's like
for so long.
Not for weeks.
And I wonder if she ever like tried to do anything to recover him.
I don't know specifically. I just know that she felt guilty about it, and like she definitely put 2 and 2 together. Okay. So I imagine she probably tried to like help him make friends and stuff when he's little, but it's like once they're in school, once they're in like junior high, like you can't be involved. Like, yeah, you can do what you can, but it's not much. Right. I think. I assume. I don't have middle school kids, but we'll see when we get there. So yeah, and she told David, she sat him down and she said, "David, don't ever abandon Ted. That is what he fears the most."
That's so sad.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how bad.
So he has really bad abandonment fears, obviously.
That's what she perceived it to be. Yeah, and it seems to make sense. I'm just not like a psychiatrist. Like I can't diagnose that, right? In high school, it seemed to be more of the same. Ted excelling academically, particularly in the math and sciences. Cool. He was known as, he was like, there's many places that say like he was not known as somebody with an individual personality, but as a walking brain. Like he was extremely intelligent, and like nobody really saw him as like a person with feelings. It was like, you're just like a calculator. Okay. You know what I mean? Which, that doesn't sound nice.
No, and he probably didn't know how to express feelings, so.
Yeah, doubtful. Right. Very doubtful. But he did clearly like really lean into this role.
I want to ask you something, and I feel like it comes up later, but wasn't he diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder? It was later?
Definitely not at this point.
Okay.
That I'm aware of.
I feel like that's somewhere in there.
I don't think
might have been like something that people later said.
I believe so, but I'm not sure. I'm not there yet. Okay. I still have more stuff that I need to research. By the way, this is part 1 of 2. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Okay. That makes sense.
This will mostly be like all his like childhood and growing up and then like the beginnings. And then we'll get into a lot of the crimes in the next week.
Yeah. There's a lot there.
There's a lot here, which is nice.
Yeah. It's good to get
as
all the
an
info.
episode. Not nice.
It's super nice.
It's like a horrible story.
Right.
Anyway. So in high school, Ted played the trombone in the marching band, and he was a member of the mathematics, biology, coin, and German clubs. So it's like, you know, it's not like he was
those all one club?
No. The mathematics club, the biology club, the coin club, and the German club.
What is the coin club?
I think it's a coin collection club. That's what I am assuming.
Like, unless it's something else. What is that? You just sit around with like coins?
They used to have like stamp club, and when I was in grade, I don't know, 3 to 5 in my grade 3 to 5 class, we had to do like stamp club.
What is that?
Every week or something.
You just like had stamps.
Collected stamps.
But stamps are like, there's a variety in stamps.
There's a lot of coins.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, there's a lot of coins.
Oh, like coins from other countries and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like special edition coins.
That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
I don't know.
That's super cool.
This
was the 50s. They didn't have the internet.
Well, this would have been more like almost the 60s, I guess. Okay. Or the early 60s. He was born in 42. No, I guess it would be late 50s. Damn, this is a long ass time ago. Yeah. I am aging rapidly.
Are you?
Just saying.
Yeah, I kind of feel old now. It sucks.
I thought you were happy about getting into your 30s.
Yeah, but now I feel old, and now I don't like it.
I also feel old.
I felt young last year, and now I feel old. Like, it just hit me so fast.
I feel old because I now have 3 fucking children.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I'm my mother. You're still young, Mom.
Did she listen to this?
I think she did, but
my mom would not fucking listen to this. I've asked her if she listened. She's like,
the Paul and Carla one really got her because she lived through that.
Yeah, that'll do it. I'm surprised she made it that far. Wait, did she listen to the Ant Hill Kids?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think I told her not to.
That's like episode 2, and I feel like that
was starting hot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was in all those clubs. Mm-hmm. He also, it's mentioned that he was part of a group of these obviously very cool guys who really liked math and science and carried briefcases around, and they called themselves the Briefcase Boys.
I love that. Why do I love that? The Briefcase Boys.
It sounds adorable.
It's so cute. It is cute. The Briefcase Boys. Aww.
So
pre-murders.
Very cute of him.
Yeah.
And then Ted went on to skip the 11th grade as well and graduated when he was only 15.
Wow.
So now Ted is super smart, but Ted would later say that this grade skipping thing was a very bad idea.
Like it fucked his social life.
He claimed that he was not accepted by the other kids.
They're not going to accept because he's like...
He was so much smaller and so much younger and like at least a little bit weird, probably quite weird.
Yeah.
And this led him, he says that he began to really resent the kids in his school, even then from an early age, and he knew that he wanted to seek revenge on them.
Ooh.
So that's dark.
That's not good.
Ted then went on to Harvard University at the age of 16.
Wow.
And he graduated in 1962 with a degree in mathematics.
Good for him.
Apparently there were people who were close to the Kaczynskis who felt that Ted was too young to be going to university, let alone Harvard, and that he was too immature, which may have been the case, but on he went anyway. In university, at least in the beginning, Ted was described as smart, easy to talk to, and very mature for his age.
Okay.
He took up multiple sports, including swimming, wrestling, and basketball, and he also continued to play the trombone. He must have been pretty good. So Ted was one of the youngest freshmen to attend Harvard, if not the youngest. And all of the youngest boys attending Harvard, obviously, like, if you're super young like that, it means you're, like, probably a genius or something because
for sure
you did what Ted did.
Yeah.
So a decision was made to house them all together in this, like, house-style dormitory at 8 Prescott Street.
That makes sense.
And the thought behind that was that it would be helpful for them to all be together. Yeah. They could socialize with one another. But it seemed like maybe the setup wasn't that great. There was apparently very little socializing between all the guys.
Yeah, because none of them knew how to socialize.
I mean, yeah, I think so. And everyone kind of stuck to themselves. They just went to class. They came back and studied.
They're just like shy nerds.
Yeah, and it wasn't very conducive to the social aspect of university, apparently, which I think some would say is pretty important.
Yeah.
Pretty important aspect of university. I think so.
I mean, high school too, right? And he already missed that.
Yeah. And it was at Harvard that Ted, like many university students, began to form his own view of the world and society. And he started to question the system, if you will.
Oh.
Specifically, big corporations and technology and their effects on the environment, stuff like that.
Valid, some could say.
Yeah. It's absolutely very normal and valid to start thinking about these things, questioning them, developing your own opinions, your own point of view, etc.
So far, this is above board.
Yeah, and he started to develop some pretty strong opinions. Mm-hmm. And in the later half of his time at Harvard, he kind of began to withdraw a lot and he became quite antisocial.
That's not good.
Shockingly, Ted did not do very well with women.
Oh, you don't say.
And now here is a very interesting piece of his university experience. So there's a lot of...
Oh, is it the thing?
It's the thing.
Okay.
A lot of controversy.
Listen up, everybody, because this is the thing.
Yeah, this is the thing. This is the fun part. So Ted spent about 200 hours taking part in a psychological study.
Okay.
And now this explanation of what happened differs from his... allegedly his...
So what's this? This is like
the agreed upon version of events.
Okay.
I think. So he spent 200 hours taking part in the psychological study, and this involved him being repeatedly humiliated and berated verbally.
Okay.
Allow me to explain. So the experiment took place between 1959 and 1962, and it was led by Harvard psychologist Henry A. Murray.
Okay.
Now, Murray was a very important figure in the field of psychology, and he pioneered personality tests, which are still routinely used to this day. This study was called Multiform Assessments of Personality Development Among Gifted College Men. Okay. And there were 22 undergraduate participants, and I believe they were all asked to be a part of the study. Okay. It was obviously geared toward like young, gifted people. Okay. And the experiment was meant to measure how people reacted under stress. And like a quote from Harvard, it was, quote, "The purpose of this research was to further understand personality by combining the use of standardized tests and projective measures with intensive study of social interaction, responses to stress, and memory," end quote. The subjects were meant to debate each other and to write essays detailing their beliefs and aspirations. Murray subjected the participants to intensive interrogation and, quote, "vehement, sweeping, and personal attacks assaulting the subjects' egos and most cherished ideals and beliefs."
And what was the purpose of that?
The purpose of the research was to further understand personality by combining the use of standardized tests and projective measures with intensive study of social interaction, responses to stress, and memory. Which I think I already just said exactly. That, yeah. But that's the purpose.
Yeah. Okay.
So the participants wore electrodes to monitor their psychological responses, and their sessions were filmed. And later, the videos of their interrogations were played back to the participants repeatedly.
Ooh, weird.
And so all of this is like the agreed upon, like that's what the study involved.
Already sounds questionably ethical.
Extremely. But Ted did not, like, and I'll show you a quote allegedly by Ted later that will like kind of dispute this a little bit. Now, and it's clear to me that this study was an absolute ethical violation. Yeah. In our current time. And I'm not sure what type of ethical standards they
everything's
had.
An ethical violation now. Like,
yeah.
This is...
Well, yeah, like saying hi to a stranger is an ethical violation.
It is. But don't say hi to me.
Yeah. I don't know what the standards were at the time for research like this. Like, you know, they were doing the Milgram experiment.
Were there standards?
Seems like there were not really
I don't
any.
think there were
and
standards.
That's when we got all the really good research, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the situation appears to me that it was like straight up abusive.
Okay. It
and
does.
Okay, there's been a lot of speculation on the experiment on the internet that this experiment was actually a part of the MK Ultra
So
project.
It's only speculation?
Here's what I found out.
Okay.
I will tell you.
Tell us what's MK Ultra, Madison.
First, what was the MK Ultra project?
Oh, please tell me.
Let me inform you. So, MK Ultra was a secret CIA project that began in 1953, and its purpose was to develop techniques and/or drugs to be used during interrogations to elicit information through, quote, mind control. Okay. This was specifically a response to the Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean mind control techniques used on U.S. prisoners during the Korean War.
Wow.
According to the internet. Now, the CIA has tried to keep this whole thing under wraps, and they've destroyed a lot of documents and evidence of whatever the fuck they were doing. But we have found out certain things here and there. And what we do know about the experiments was there were about 80 institutions in Canada and the U.S., including but not limited to colleges and universities, hospitals and prisons, where experiments were taking place. And many of the participants didn't even know they were participants. There were some studies done and where they like were secretly injecting people with, or not necessarily injecting people, but slipping people LSD.
Like the guy who jumped off the building.
Yes, which I will get to too. Okay. A lot of it was hallucinogens and LSD specifically, and other drugs. And yeah, they were giving this to people without their knowledge.
Hey, Madison, have you ever done LSD?
I don't know who's listening to this.
No, okay.
But
because I never have, and I would love to.
You haven't?
About it. No.
Oh yeah, I've done it. It's a cool drug.
If you're taking it,
not like this. If you're taking
if you know that you're
consentingly,
like, if you know
or you
it.
are doing, if you decide to do it yourself.
Imagine you don't know. Okay, imagine if you didn't know you were taking it. Would you be freaked out?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how you like. You would be like, I'm
insane.
dying. Like I don't like. You have to be in a good mindset, like everything else. Anyway, yeah, I don't know who's listening, so.
Okay.
I don't do drugs anymore. Yeah, so what was my little side note on this? Yes, there's a very good Netflix miniseries. Did you see it by Errol Morris? It's called I think it's called Wormwood.
Yeah, you told me about it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and it's about a scientist known to have been involved in
And I knew
MK
about
Ultra.
this case just separately.
Yeah, and he mysteriously fell out of a window to his death, and the government said it was suicide. Of course, this documentary portrays that it's very unlikely that it was a suicide, and his family thinks it was not a suicide, and like goes pretty deep into people being like, yes, it was a suicide within the government. And I think the most controversial thing about this whole thing with the CIA is it's my understanding that the CIA is not supposed to do anything on American soil. So this sounds like it was on American soil.
I feel like they can just do whatever, though.
Yeah, apparently there's this one, this I've only heard of off the cuff or whatever. I think on like Joe Rogan or something. There was like one experiment where, I forget what it was called. It was called something funny like Project Midnight or something, where they set up this brothel and all the Johns who came in to do their thing, they slipped LSD to them and then like watched and saw what happened. And it's like, they're not going to tell anyone because like
they're at a brothel.
They had to, yeah, they're like eliciting prostitution.
Right.
But it's like those poor guys.
Yeah, that's
just trying to cheat on their wives and accidentally get slipped LSD. Well, on purposely get slipped LSD, but it's like, what a fucking trip that would be.
Yeah.
So they're doing cool, fun stuff like that.
Super cool. And fun.
So it seems to be the consensus that there's no like hard evidence linking this to MK Ultra, but there does seem to be
also there's not that much hard evidence about MK Ultra.
No, and that's the thing. So. There's some very suspicious aspects, which I'll tell you.
Oh, tell me. Okay.
So definitely super suspicious that Henry A. Murray, who was the leader of this study, he, back in the day, worked with the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, during World War II.
Okay.
He was helping to produce a psychological profile of Hitler, which sounds so interesting.
Yeah.
By the way. And after the war, the OSS became the CIA.
Oh, well.
I also found people online claiming that Henry Murray was super into LSD testing and mind control experiments.
I mean, yeah.
According to Alston Chase, author of Harvard and the Unabomber, which I have not read and I don't know how legit it is, Murray was, quote, the wizard of personality assessment who, as OSS chief psychologist, had monitored military experiments on brainwashing and sodium amytal interrogation, end quote.
So do you think that Ted was dosed with LSD?
I don't know.
It's possible?
I don't even think, to me, it doesn't make,
It doesn't matter.
I don't think that any of this had anything to do with LSD. I don't think he was dosed with LSD. To me, it's just like, was this MK Ultra or was this not? Because I think it could still fall under like, they're trying to figure out, like, they're trying to study the human mind and how to control it. So they're finding these people who are extremely intelligent and studying like how far they can push them and what makes them tick or whatever.
So crazy.
So did they give them LSD? Did they not? I don't even think that's an important question. I don't see any evidence that they received LSD, but was this MK Ultra? Was this the CIA experimenting on young college guys in a very unethical way?
Probably was.
When they should not have been doing that on American soil.
I mean, we know they did that in Canada, which maybe we'll talk about at some point.
Yeah.
To unsuspecting people.
Exactly.
So why
like
would they?
These people were not unsuspecting that they were in a study, but they were definitely not suspecting it to be this brutal.
Yeah,
It's unethical. Absolutely.
I'd
and
say
if
that.
it was the government performing unethical studies, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
There was a series on the Unabomber apparently called, quote, Manhunt Unabomber.
Okay.
By Discovery. And in it, apparently, the Harvard study is portrayed as being an MK Ultra study.
Okay. Yeah.
So there is this ex-FBI agent named Greg Stejskal, and he claims that this was, like, he comes out and he's written an article being like, this is not an MK Ultra study, and he's like super against that theory.
Okay.
And he says that he has this quote from Ted. He found this woman who was corresponding with Ted who was asking him about the series. And so he wrote an article and he put this in the article. The woman still remains anonymous.
Okay.
But this was her response This was Ted's response to her.
Okay.
Quote, "From several people, I've received letters concerning that Discovery Channel series about me, and it's clear from the letters that the Discovery series is even worse than most of the other media stories about me. In fact, the greater part of it is pure fiction. Among other things, they apparently passed on to their viewers the tale through the agency of Harvard professor H.A. Murray that I was repeatedly tortured as part of an MK-Ultra mind control program conducted by the CIA. The truth is that in the course of the Murray study, there was one and only one unpleasant experience. It lasted about half an hour and could not have been described as torture, even in the loosest sense of the word. Mostly, the Murray study consisted of interviews and of filling out pencil and paper personality tests. The CIA was not involved. Since people may find it difficult to believe that the media would broadcast such a conglomeration of outright lies, I'm sending you herewith a copy of an article by FBI agent Greg Stejskal, which is the guy I was just saying, in which Stejskal confirms that the greater part of the Discovery series is fiction. Okay. Stejskal's purpose is to defend the honor of the FBI, not to tell the truth about Ted Kaczynski. In fact, not all of his statements about me are strictly accurate. But the fact that Discovery lied about the FBI investigation should make it easier for people to believe that they lied about me too." End quote. Now, does this settle the question? I don't think so. The media are often liars. I absolutely agree. Do not deny that. But is Ted Kaczynski the most trustworthy person in the story? Dunno. Questionable, yeah. Should we rely on an FBI agent to ultimately be the arbiter of the truth of whether or not the CIA was involved? I don't know. Right. I don't know who to trust here. Yeah. I don't trust the media. I do not trust a terrorist. And I don't necessarily trust an FBI agent to tell me the truth either. But that is the information that I found, and it is up to other people to decide what they believe and what they don't.
Do you have a theory?
I would be inclined not to believe that it was a CIA-involved study unless I have real proof of it.
And it doesn't sound as bad as the CIA studies.
No, it's not like you're not being given drugs, but it's also like you're being a huge dick to these young kids. Like, that's a horrible thing to do to college-age kids, and who knows?
Fucked, yeah.
But like, then I'm like weirded out because Ted Kaczynski's not even saying it was bad,
right?
And he in his like later, he comes out like really against the leftists, which I assume is like, I assume most of like the leftists that he's met academics are like in university.
So are there documents about this study? Because one thing about MKUltra is that many of the documents were destroyed.
Yes, there's documentation about this study. And you can go to the, like, there's a Harvard website that talks about the study.
So then maybe it is above board.
Yeah, no, I'm not inclined to believe that it was an MKUltra study.
Right.
I just think it's super sketchy that Henry Murray, the guy who led it, was part of
what became the CIA.
Yeah. What became the CIA, and seemingly like into really similar projects to MKUltra. Yeah. Which he's a psychologist, like maybe that's just what he was studying.
And that was the time.
And that was the time, yeah.
So interesting either way.
Yeah, and that's what there's a lot of stuff online. There's a lot of people who really think it was the CIA, a lot of people who really don't. It's a very debatable thing online, but also like I also think what Ted is saying has a lot of truth to it. Like this case specifically, like this went on for 17 years. So many people have written about this. So many people, and like I think most people probably know, but I'll mention like he left a manifesto that's like 30, like it's a lengthy ass document that I have been reading. I haven't finished it. It's really, really difficult to read.
Are you going to read it on kids. Pod?
No, I have like a couple quotes from it, but
I've read part of it.
Yeah, I'll mostly like talk about it.
I was part of the sick cult.
But I'll bring it up. It's more to do with the second episode. But so many people have weighed in on this. It's really, really hard, I think, to parse out what is true and what is not. I have been watching, there's a series on Netflix. What is it called? What is this? It's right here. It's called Unabomber in his own words. And I find that like a decently trustworthy source because you're getting information from the people who were involved in the investigation at the time. Actually, Greg Stejskal or whatever his name is, he's interviewed. His brother is interviewed. Okay. So like the stuff that like David Kaczynski says, I'm like, okay, that's a trustworthy piece of information. But yeah, any of these like really big cases, especially ones as controversial as this, especially because there's people online, like there's a lot of controversy over Ted Kaczynski and people who think he was like a super cool guy and like, you know, kind of this like cult following that he's gathered versus the people who are like, that's fucked up. There's a lot.
Yeah.
So that's that on that project. The maybe MK Ultra, maybe not MK Ultra situation. But anyway, so he went through that. Allegedly now he's claiming that it was like not a big deal, but everyone else thinks it was. So anyway, Ted did graduate. He went on to graduate from Harvard, and then he went on to study at the University of Michigan. Okay. And there he earned a PhD in theoretical mathematics. He was described by multiple professors as exceptionally intelligent, and at Michigan he studied complex analyses, specifically geometric function.
Cool.
What are these things, you ask? Yeah, I'll tell you, but I still won't be able to really tell you. Okay. So complex analysis is the theory of functions of a complex variable, according to Wikipedia. These are probably like really layman's terms. Okay. I don't know. And apparently it investigates functions of complex numbers. Not quite sure what that means, but I guess if you know, you know.
I don't.
Nor do I. And geometric functions, according to Wikipedia, is the study of geometric properties of analytic functions.
Cool.
I never excelled in math, so
same.
There you go. Now, here is something that I never heard about the Unabomber story before, and this I'm inclined not really to trust this because this all came out later after. I'll explain. But according to a 1998 article in the Washington Post, while in graduate school in 1967, Ted alleged that he began to experience persistent and intense sexual fantasies about being a woman.
I've never heard that.
I've never heard this either.
Wait, and Ted said this?
Ted said this. And this was all revealed many years later in a psychiatric evaluation by Sally Johnson, chief psychiatrist at the Federal Correctional Institution.
Spoiler alert.
And this was during an evaluation which was done when Ted was attempting to defend himself during his trial, which we'll get into the trial later.
Yeah.
So he says, and the reason I find this kind of sketchy is because he's trying to defend himself.
Like coming up with.
It's like I don't trust whatever he said to psychiatrists. I don't trust that but fair. This is what he said. And I think it's interesting to say what he said. Do we take it as fact? No. Right. So he says he was having these feelings in 1967, apparently. And so he said he went to see a psychiatrist to discuss the possibility of a sex change operation.
No way.
Yes. But while sitting in the waiting room, he decided not to go forward with any of it. And he told the psychiatrist that he was depressed about the possibility of being drafted instead of going through. So like that's, he said, he was like, okay, never mind. I was joking. I just didn't want to be drafted. So I thought I would turn into a woman. Random.
Okay.
But then he said, quote, this is a quote from Ted Kaczynski. As I walked away from the building afterwards, I felt disgusted about what my uncontrolled sexual cravings had almost led me to do. And I felt humiliated and I violently hated the psychiatrist. Just then there came a major turning point in my life. Like a phoenix, I burst from the ashes of my despair to a glorious new hope. End quote. So he just he felt really badly about himself, and that's when he like turned and just like decided to become what he became.
Okay.
This evaluation also revealed that Ted harbored some major anger at his family, who he claimed psychologically abused him.
Really?
Yes.
Like his parents?
Yes. Ted blamed his family's abuse for his lifelong inability to establish deep relationships, particularly with women.
What was the abuse?
However, one of the main examples he cited was that of his mother scolding him for not putting his dirty socks in the hamper 20 years earlier. Something I scold Chris for about daily.
Do you think he's abused?
No. So this incident, I guess, just ended, but the rage was still there, bubbling beneath the surface of his mom.
But maybe like he just had misplaced anger about the...
It must have been that because like David denies the abuse.
Yeah.
Nobody ever, there's no evidence of his family ever abusing him. They seem like a pretty nice family.
Like, what is it that makes me feel disconnected and like have that issue with my family? Maybe it was this incident because maybe he missed like some critical point in his development where like because he was separated, he didn't get the wires connected of like, hey, them disciplining you is not the same thing as them abusing you.
I think that's possible, because I don't know like to where, like if he acknowledges, and I think I'll have to look into that, and that's something I should look
If
into.
he acknowledges the 9-month-old thing, yeah. I wonder too. I heard he'll respond to anybody who writes to him.
He corresponds with a lot of people.
So you could just ask him.
Yeah, maybe I will. I don't have time for that.
Hey man, how's it going?
So that allegedly happened in 1967.
Very interesting.
And like I looked into it and I was like, I couldn't believe it. And so like I looked on Reddit and like there's a thread called like Ted Kaczynski, a trans icon. I'm like, oh, people.
Everybody's a fucking icon these days.
So bad. Anyway, so then in 1968, he became the youngest assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley. This tenure, unfortunately, did not last long.
Aww.
Ted had a very hard time delivering lectures because of his apparent social issues.
Yeah.
And he did not look people in the eye and had a very difficult time socially.
So interesting, yeah.
Clearly not ideal for this type of position.
Yeah.
So Ted then resigned from this position in 1969.
Okay.
You got that? I read an article where there was a woman who was one of his students, and she spoke about her experience being one of his students, and she said that he was obviously very impressive academically and he was clearly super smart, but she went to his office hour session once to ask him for some advice. I think she was thinking about either like changing majors or like leaving school entirely. Like it was something pretty personal and important to her, but not like about school really, or not about the class. And he just like, she was like pouring her heart out to him, and he just sat there blankly and like couldn't say anything to her.
I mean, it's not really his like.
It's not, but it's like at least she was like, I just went to kind of try to talk to somebody, and he was just like, for people just listening, I'm just sitting here.
Yeah.
Looking blankly. So I don't know, kind of unhelpful and weird. And so then in 1972, Ted moved to Montana and bought the most secluded property that he could find.
Here we go.
Ted built himself a little cabin in the woods near Lincoln, Montana. It was a 10 by 12 tiny little cabin where he would spend the majority of the next 24 years.
It's fucking crazy.
So as much as possible, Ted lived a survivalist lifestyle, hunting and growing his own food, much like his father taught him to do.
Yeah.
Here we're bringing it back up.
Full circle, kind of.
He was living off the fat of the land. He had no heat, no electricity, and no running water, and no people to share it with.
Yeah.
Ted spent all of his alone time continuing to develop his anti-industrialist ideology. Ted would often spend time at the local library. Like if he were to ever go out, that's where he would go. I think there was one like really small library kind of close to him. And then like every so often he would venture to like the bigger town to like go to the big library. And he would just be there gathering materials that he would use to start writing the early versions of his now famous manifesto.
It's just it's just crazy to me to think of all that alone time and what it does to a person.
Yes. I think isolation.
Like I was telling you about this, but before COVID, like before lockdown, I always knew about this case. And I always knew that he spent a lot of time alone, and it made him crazy. But spending time alone in lockdown makes you crazy. Like it really, and I spent maybe like, I don't know, maybe I would go a few days to a week or whatever at most without like meaningful human contact. And
that
lot. Was so like effective. Like that really affected my mental health. 24 years.
Yeah.
Like that now after having experienced that, it's such a huge part of what happened to me. Whereas before I was like, oh, Ted was crazy. Then he lived in the woods and then he did the thing that we'll talk about. But
no, I think
this
absolutely
is going to fuck you up.
Well, the one difference from that situation in yours is that he chose to do this.
Yes, but I don't think he consciously understood the impacts on his mental health.
And what I think was like especially detrimental to a situation like this is like he's extremely intelligent. Yeah. So like his mind
it's
going nuts, and he's specifically developing a very hateful life perspective
and
with nobody else to kind of like poke holes at it or to like bounce ideas off of, or to be like, hey man, that's kind of crazy. Like it just like, especially if you've got a mind that is going that quickly and like delving so deep into kind of depressing topics, like that is just a fucking spiral.
That's what fucking happens when you're alone.
Depression and craziness.
And I think he might have been doing the thing where he was already self-isolating. So he probably had this deep sense of like undeservingness and isolation already. So he probably was like, yeah, fuck this, I don't need people. And then he got to a point where he was so shelled off that he couldn't even reach out to people, and it was just compounding on itself. Like, I just truly cannot imagine having that life and how messed up I'd be. Like, that is just...
No, that is a absolute recipe to completely mess up a person.
Yeah.
I think his whole life, starting from the point where he went to the hospital at that point or whatever, skipping grades, spending all the time in academia, going to that study that allegedly was abusive, whatever, all of that unchecked,
and no relationships
clear,
ever. It doesn't seem like any significant friendships or romantic relationships.
None
that we know of. Yeah.
None. There was one incident, I'll get into it, but like very brief and like not a lot of information about it either.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I very much agree with your assessment. So, that was, I'm just getting to that. So in 1978, Ted took a very brief leave from the cabin in the woods situation, and he moved to Chicago. Oh, okay. He got a job at, I think his brother owned a factory at the time. I don't know what it was a factory for, but he had a very short-lived relationship with a woman there, and that
he did
unsurprisingly soured very quickly. Oh. Ted did not take that very well, and apparently he like wrote some like pretty aggressive poetry about her after that. I don't know how, but people saw it, and like it got him fired. And so
the aggressive poetry is just like,
yeah, guys, some of y'all need to learn that you're not poets.
Don't write aggressive poetry. Don't write a song you want her to listen to.
You're not a musician. You're just a guy.
Just stop
feeling your feels. I'd love to know a situation of like where something like that like worked out for them, where like a girl broke up with them, and then they're like,
"Wow, this poetry's great."
You a song, and then the girl's like, "Oh my god, heck yeah, I'll come back to you." Yeah. Like it doesn't happen.
I don't think so.
Anyway, so back to the cabin he went. Ted was well into his 30s, and even with his extremely high IQ, Ted had no job, no income, and relied mostly on his parents for money. Ted's parents were frugal people who had amassed a lot of money in savings, and they would send yearly stipends to Ted and his brother.
Oh, okay.
And apparently, Ted would lie about needing medical care to trick his mother into sending him more money, which he would not use for medical purposes. He would use for making bombs. I will get into later.
Oh.
But Ted was...
cost a lot of money to make?
He had no money.
Right.
So they cost more than zero.
They cost some. Okay.
Ted was noticing spots near his home that had begun to become developed, turning into new roads and housing, and it angered him to see this and fueled his rage against society. Yeah. He felt personally attacked and felt like it was becoming impossible for him to live a secluded lifestyle, and basically no one would leave him alone. And he felt that like the society that he lived in was impossible to live secludedly or like off the grid or whatever.
You just like shouldn't be alone this much.
Yeah, like you should not be living off the grid, bro. You should be living on the grid. Yeah. You should be really like smack in the middle of the grid at some sort of institution. Anyway, he started to get the idea that the only way to preserve nature and to live the specific lifestyle that he wanted to live was to start violently rebelling and literally becoming a terrorist.
Sounds like a great idea.
He felt that like there's no other way, like there was nothing he could do besides like be violent.
I'm sure because he's so, and
he started actually with people nearby.
Okay.
Ted was, and like after, tell me if you think this is accurate analysis, but Ted was the Grinch of his town.
I love that. I love the Grinch. Did he have a dog?
Yeah, Max.
No, Ted. Did Ted have a dog like
no,
Grinch?
I don't think so. No, he was by himself.
So then he wasn't the Grinch.
No, but
I still like that. Yeah,
I think it's
that makes him likable though.
It's a pretty abject. Yeah, but he doesn't. But then he goes and kills people.
I know, but the comparison.
The Grinch like turned good.
We love the Grinch.
Ted didn't. So there was this neighbor of Ted's named Butch Gearing. Okay. And Butch ran a small sawmill on his property, and he would gather trees to make lumber at his little sawmill. And this was a very small operation, but the actual sawmill was very loud, and Ted did not like Butch because he did not like trees being chopped down, he did not like the pollution that it caused, and he did not like the noise. Okay. So Ted came up with a little plan to put him out of business once and for all. One night, he snuck over to the sawmill and sanded it, which meant that he put sand through the engine, which blocked up the whole machine and essentially broke it. And it was very costly to repair. And Butch and his family had no idea who did it. Certainly no one suspected quiet little Ted who lived in his little cabin.
Yeah.
And then another incident occurred where there was some motorcyclists who kept riding on this road that was supposed to be closed, and Ted could not stand it.
That
He
is
was
really
so
fucking
pissed.
annoying, though.
He fucking hated it.
I'd be pissed.
And so he waited.
Tripwire.
Pardon me?
Tripwire.
No.
I'm just kidding.
A much less normal response.
Okay.
Ted couldn't stand it, so he waited until it was a quiet, rainy day when no one was around, and then he took an axe and went to their cabin and destroyed it. Like he knocked,
Bro.
he like destroyed the walls of it, everything inside. He messed it up so much, and then he took a shit in their bathtub, and then he left.
I just did not see that coming.
Yeah, like
Cool, man.
like,
You showed him.
yeah.
You really got him.
They must have been like, what the fuck?
Okay.
Again, Ted was not a suspect in any of this.
Okay.
Everyone, in fact, like police were like, Ted, have you you walk around? Like, have you do you see anyone suspicious? And he's like, no. But that is that for what we're covering today.
Okay.
And you'll see much later that Ted will take his revenge much further.
Oh, yeah.
And his terrorism much further. And that is all for next week.
Wow.
I'm just going to take this little dump and just leave it here, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. This is nothing compared to what he ends up doing.
But it is interesting to see the beginnings. Like,
It
this is where
100%
he
is.
started, and like I think it's always interesting when you see like the lead up, because that's where they're like, okay, I'm going to do something and I'm going to get away with it, and it's
Right.
And it's them being able to get away with it
Yeah.
that fuels their what am I trying to say? Their confidence.
And he has so much resentment built up
Mm-hmm.
that he's going to need to keep escalating.
And boy, is it going to escalate.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think. Talk to us on Instagram. Send us some gifts if you so choose.
Yeah.
No, joking, but
Hey,
joking,
want
but
to,
not
you can.
joking. We'll accept them as long as they are not a part of the human body.
We'll accept them, whatever they are. Don't be so picky.
Okay. Check us out on Instagram, at Twitter. We'll have all the social medias below. hello@whosknockingpodcast.com. And stay safe out there, because you never know
Who's knocking?
This podcast is produced in collaboration with Lost Line Media. Artwork by August Digital. Music by Matthew Cook.